sometimes a show comes along that's so raw and visceral that you really need a day or two to process truly how incredible it is. Stereophonic is one of them. Stereophonic has transferred to the West End from Broadway's Golden Theatre, and over there it made a huge splash, becoming the most Tony Award nominated play of all time. So obviously it comes over here with a lot of hype behind it, a lot to live up to, and I was a little bit worried it wasn't going to live up to it, but oh my god, it did. Stereophonic is so visceral. Stereophonic is so naturalistic in how it explores its drama. And in a year that's already had a lot of really strong plays, it is up there. So why did I love Stereophonic? Let's find out. But if you haven't seen my face before, hi, I'm Ellie. I talk about theatre. I am the most chaotic theatre person on the internet. I do reviews, I do discussions, I do versus brackets, game shows, and so much more. And if any of that sounds interesting to you, please consider hitting like and subscribe. It really helps me out, helps out the channel. But let's dive into Stereophonic. On the surface, Stereophonic is really simple. In the 1970s, we follow a fictional band for the creation of their album. That is literally the plot. That verbatim, that's it. That kind of describes what we're going for in the motions of this play. And it's so simple to a point where you kind of sit there and wonder, okay, how are we going to fill like 3 hours, 15 minutes of this? How are we getting through this? How are we getting through 3 hours of drama around an album? But they managed to fill every single second of this play full of this human conflict, the people behind the artists, this rising tension between the group, and these character relationships that are constantly shifting through the creation of this art. There's a lot of parallels in this play to Fleetwood Mac. During the creation of their album Rumours, there was a lot of behind-the-scenes drama, which was explored by the sound engineer on that album. And the stories are so close that Stereophonic was sued. They were sued by this sound designer, and they settled out of court. So we already know there's something here when it comes to drama. But at the end of the day, my favourite thing about a play is when they truly take the time to explore the characters, the dynamics, these moments of rising tension, the conflict between them, and exploring that in many different ways. And I think Stereophonic is such a key example of a play that takes advantage of every single character it presents and the different dynamics they have between the group. I'm going to try and be as spoiler-free as I possibly can throughout this review, because a lot of it I really want you to go and watch it if you can and truly appreciate this piece for what it presents. But Stereophonic is so unbelievably successful in its approach to its storytelling. It feels a little bit weird at first, the moments that they're choosing to focus on. There's a lot of jumping around in time, and they choose a lot of moments post-argument, post-breakups, post these heightened moments of tension that a lot of other plays would focus on, and instead focus on the aftermath. What happens after these fights and the aftermath of that, and how it affects the creation of the art. It can take a second to navigate some of these time jumps, but I really think it is worth it to highlight what this play focuses on. All of these fights and this tension and the changes in dynamics, whether it be positive or negative, changes the approach to the creation of the art, changes how this group interacts. There's so much that is left unsaid in this play. There's so much that is more so alluded to. And still it manages to mine that for as much drama as they can possibly find. And what it creates is this play where you feel like you are in that room. You feel like a fly on the wall. You're watching these little moments of tension, witnessing the shifting of dynamics, the relationships breaking apart. This book does such a great job at placing us into these certain very choice moments to really bring the drama to a front. And there's so many different techniques that this book and the direction uses to heighten this. I think one of my favorite things, and a technique that I always really love, is silence. From an outside perspective, I think a lot of people think that to create a really engaging piece of drama, you have to constantly be raising it. You have to constantly be shouting. It has to build and build and build. But sometimes you can build momentum in silence. Silence can be just as poignant and powerful on a stage when used correctly as an argument and shouting and dialogue can be. And when I say that Stereophonic is not afraid to use a silence, I mean it. I swear if I totaled up all of the silence together, I swear it would make up about 10 minutes of the running time of the whole piece. We have an interval's worth of silence in this play. You could go to the bar, grab a drink if you totaled it all up. But these moments of silence are so perfect to truly explore how these characters are feeling. And it also adds to so much of the naturalism of the piece. These conflicts are emotional, they're visceral, they're raw, and they're so extremely human and natural. And sometimes you need a moment to process that, especially in these peaks of high intensity. And these silences help to provide that, a moment to look over the characters, a moment to truly explore how each one is feeling, how these conflicts are affecting them. You see from the performances that these characters processing everything they're saying in these slight moments. And because of that, even when they are saying absolutely nothing on stage, you are on the edge of your seat waiting with anticipation. There's so much here. It's such a tightly written book. Even the tiniest little moments, the forgetting of a name or something, tells you so much about these characters, who they are, and showing you a lot of the people behind the artists. It tells you so much about the creation of art, the collaboration, the ups and downs in that type of process, and the changes in these characters' statuses as these dynamics are constantly shifting. You could write a thesis on these characters. There's so much depth, and that's why I really want to see this again. Now that I'm a little bit more aware of it and I understand these journeys, just to dive in more and more and more. It feels like one of those plays where truly every time you go and see it, you can pick up on a different dynamic, pick up on a different idea. They're so complex and well written. One moment I really want to dive into to highlight some of these ideas is the start of Act 2. This will be a little bit spoilery, but I'm going to try and be as vague as possible. This moment, right at the top of Act 2, well, Act 2 as in Act 1, Act 2, it's technically Act 3 because it's a 4-act structure, but you get what I mean. At the top of Act 3, we get a moment where we see the music punctuate and really cleverly highlight the shift of the character dynamics. We see this huge shift in a relationship happen just off stage. We don't see the performers. It's all done through the intercom on the sound desk. And you hear this argument from outside the room. And suddenly when they come back in, everything has changed. One character's status suddenly being so much higher, the performance that they're giving being so much stronger, almost feeling free and unshackled in this moment, and the other, the one who's been let go of, turns towards the audience for the first time in that scene, sitting and dwelling in that rejection, and not saying a single word, but you can see everything on his face. Clever direction meeting clever book, all of these different factors coming together, the music coming in as well to highlight it. You can just see from one little scene, one tiny moment that I've chosen here, how complex it is. How everything comes together for the art of theatre to just present a really raw human story. And an idea and a theme and a shift in dynamic. That's what I love. That is theatre. That's theatre, baby. And that's why I go see theatre. The only tiny thing I say, and I want to highlight before I say this, that this is not really a criticism about the piece itself, but it's literally the only thing I will levy to it. So I'm not docking any points, it's still a 5-star review, but I do think a 5-minute pause after the first act, the first part of Act 1, would have been beneficial in this case. This is a long piece, and it takes its time. It kind of has to. It's so naturalistic in its approach, it's understandable why it's so long. And I think it does use the time effectively every single time. There's nothing that I would really cut out of this, because everything shows you this dynamic or has a point. But it does mean that the first half is very long. That's an hour 40. That's a lot of drama and tension to process. And I think, like, I fully processed everything about this play, like, 2 days after. I fully understood, like, why I love this play so much a couple of days after. But having, like, a 5-minute pause, I think would have just given me a little bit more time to process that setup in that first act. And just to make it flow a little bit better, which is weird to say, take a pause so I can process things, but I do think that would be beneficial, and I think there's other plays that had a similar approach that were successful because of that. Take something like Hills of California, for example. I think that show had a similar structure, a very long piece where you've got to process all of these characters and all of these shifting dynamics and a lot of really heavy stuff. And having that first pause, that 5-minute pause, just that little tiny break, allowed me with Hills of California to process things a little bit quicker and to truly appreciate in the moment while watching it just how great the piece I was watching was. So I wonder whether Stereophonic adopting something similar would be beneficial. But I don't think that takes away from truly how strong this piece is. How tightly written it is, how interesting these characters are, how naturalistic it is. It's such a character-driven drama rather than a plot-driven drama. And if you can get into these characters, if you can really get your teeth in, you can see just how complex and interesting this piece can be. It might not be for everyone, but oh my god, this is the type of theatre I love. But being about artists, being about musicians, and being about the creation of an album, it makes a lot of sense that Stereophonic has a score attached to it. This isn't a musical, but it's all about rock stars. We need a good score. I mean, there's a lot of references to them being in the top 40, getting to #1 in the charts. In such a peak era for music that was the 70s, that's not an easy feat. So, whatever music this show presents has to match that. It has to be as strong as the music of the time. It has to justify everything this play says about these artists and the achievements that they make within the piece. And not only that, it's got to show the complete creation process. We see moments of them trying different things with these songs. We see moments where they're messing up, slipping up, their tempo's slightly out. They're picking each other up on these tiny little things they're slipping up on. And this show's got to have like 50 different versions of every single song so that we can see these sudden shifts and these changes and how they're building upon this art. And you've got to do that in a believable way. You've got to do that in slow little sections, building it piece by piece by piece. You can't have that change happen too quickly, otherwise it feels unjustified. All that to say how complex this score has to be. How difficult, how mammoth of a task creating the music for Stereophonic is. And yet Will Butler's score manages to do this so perfectly. Allowing these creation sequences, as I'll dub them, these moments where they're building upon their music, where they're recording it, where things are going wrong and they're trying to find their way through it as artists do, to feel so genuine, to feel so unique. I don't think I've really seen a piece that's explored the creation of art like this. And again, it adds to the fly-on-the-wall feeling, the documentary style feeling of Stereophonic. You get the behind-the-scenes drama, but you also need to see the other side of it. What they create together. And showing these moments where, despite their arguments and their tension, you can see why these people have come together. It's got to show how they work as a group, how they build on these songs. And oh my god, it achieves it. And I'm so glad that they've actually released a lot of this music by itself, because it is stunning. Masquerade is an absolute banger. We get so many wonderful different variations on Bright, which is a fantastic song, whether it be a solo, whether it be a group song, whether it's fast or slow. All these different versions that they're throwing out and trying, each having their own merits and demerits. It's a truly phenomenal score that allows this piece to take you through this process, adding a different layer on top of this piece. And if all of that wasn't impressive enough, we have the design of this piece. We have this incredible set. Stereophonic takes place entirely in one studio, a very confined space. A lot of other shows would mimic this space, using sound and lighting to mimic a sound studio. Stereophonic said, no, we're just gonna build the thing. And on a West End stage, on the stage at the Duke of York's Theatre, they have just straight up built a sound studio. The back wall that you can see through a pane of glass is fully soundproof. And all of the instruments and every sung line of dialogue, everything that they're creating, all of this music is done live. When they loop it back through the sound machine on the stage, that is what they performed just then in front of you. So much could go wrong with that. That is ballsy. And yet Stereophonic makes it look easy. They achieve so much with this space. It's impressive from a technological standpoint with what they're doing every night, with what they're achieving, but it's also impressive just visually as well, and how instantly it brings you into this space. It's so perfect for the era with the carpets everywhere. It's so perfectly lived in as well. As we go through these eras, as we get further and further and further, we can see more and more of how they kind of take over this space. It is a phenomenal piece of work from David Zinn as the set designer. A perfectly practical and natural space for this naturalistic piece. Genuinely impressive work. So good. And finally, let's talk about this cast. This is a playground for actors. This piece gives you so much to work with what is said and what isn't. And so it makes sense that all 7 of our performers give phenomenal portrayals here. Jack Riddleford plays Peter. He is kind of the head of the band. He takes over as producer. He's involved with a lot of the writing process. We see loads of these sequences where he's creating these pieces, where he's trying different things. He's very stern. He's very punchy. He's very blunt in places. And you can kind of see how he's a voice that takes over the room. Riddleford's portrayal of this character is very black and white. Just with many things in this play, he's a complex character. He's dealing with a lot of struggles. He struggles with his relationship breaking up. He is quick to anger and frustration. And he's paired wonderfully with Lucy Karchevsky. Lucy plays Diana. And she gets one of my favorite character arcs through this whole show. She's dealing with a lot of anxieties, and she's dealing with a lot of insecurities about her performance, about her vocals, her ability when it comes to playing musical instruments, and a lot of that is down to her relationship with Peter. This being one of the key relationships at the heart of Stereophonic, and the changes we see as they drift apart, it's night and day. You truly get to see Diana come right into her element, and making that character journey so believable is such a difficult task to achieve, and I think Lucy does it so perfectly. We have Zachary Hart as Reggie. He's kind of a tragic character. He starts the show being quite pathetic. He's late. He's very clearly dealing with addiction, and that's affecting a lot of his relationships with different people. It's affecting his relationship within the band. And we see the ups and downs of this, the moments where he faces it, and the moments where he manages to pull himself together a bit more when he falls back into it. And you see how he tackles these difficulties. You see how he moves through it. You see all of this really human struggle, and it makes him one of the characters that is the most easy to feel for, the one that you feel the most empathy for. A wonderfully human portrayal from Zachary Hart here. We have the first of our Broadway cast members to come over in Chris Stack. Stack plays Simon. He's a character who bounces around a lot of these different dynamics and these different separate relationships in the group. And someone who I always kept my eye on in these different scenes to watch his reaction in places. Similar in that kind of way is Holly, played by Nia Towle. She's dealing with her own relationships, her personal relationship with Reggie, that's kind of on and off in places, as she struggles to really massively connect with him. We see a lot of her confiding with Diana, the two women in the band kind of grouping together in places. And there's so many interesting shifts that this play explores with her that Nia performs to perfection. Especially in these moments where she's trying to move away from the band, while she's moving house, and we get really interesting explorations of this group dynamic and how it shifts and changes. And finally, we have our two sound engineers on the album, both being performers coming over from Broadway. First of all, we have Eli Gelb as Grover. Out of everyone, Grover is one of the most grounded characters, and it makes him a really great perspective to watch a lot of this show through. He's a character we see his confidence kind of rise and rise. He finds himself working on this album despite not having quite the right experience for it, and trying to make up for that in places, trying to cover for himself, but slowly but surely earning the respect of all of these artists. He feels so genuine. He feels like the type of person that you could just sit down and chat to for ages. All the moments where he's offering advice, where he's trying to get things back on track, where he's working on the album and trying to bring the focus back in on it so that they can actually pull it together. A really fantastic portrayal that I really appreciate when we look at the piece as a whole and what this character and this performance provides for this piece. And finally, we have Andrew R. Butler as Charlie. If Grover starts out kind of at the bottom and rises up slowly, Charlie's the punching bag. His presence in the piece is really interesting. He's kind of forgotten in a lot of places. His work isn't really truly appreciated, and he fades into the background a lot of the time. He barely says anything, but his presence is so strongly felt, especially with how overlooked he often is. There's so many moments where you truly see how left out he feels. It's a very carefully thought out performance from Butler. Incredibly important to the whole piece. Stereophonic is outstanding. It is fantastic theatre. So full of real human experience, naturalistic dialogue, scenes that, yes, I feel like you could watch, and if you're not truly invested, could see as unnecessary. But the more you think about this character dynamic, the more you look at it for how it's speaking about the creation of art and people as a whole and how collaboration works, you get more and more and more out of it. It's a long piece, and you have to be prepared for that. But if you are, and if you bring yourself into Stereophonic and truly go on the journey with it and explore this deeply complex journey it takes you on, it is an absolute treat. But what do you think? Have you seen Stereophonic, either in New York or in London? Let me know all your thoughts on the piece in the comments down below. If you did enjoy this video, please consider hitting like and subscribe. It really helps me, it helps out the channel. Here's some links to some other videos on screen right now, and a link to my Instagram if you'd like to drop me a follow over there. I also have other social links and a merch store in the description down below. But that's it for me today, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.